Okay, this is the truck I'm working on at the moment. It's a 2015 Ford F350 Super Duty, and the truck bed is needing to be repainted. I'm going to show the areas here. You can see there's a bunch of rust bubbling up under the paint, and that is all the way along there and down the sides also. This is the side that I've already done. You can see I've already wire brushed it and treated the rust and sanded it as well, and we're going to be doing some primer on that in a second. This is another area that I'm going to have to work on very shortly. I'm going to leave this part to last because that rust really needs to be treated properly before we get that painted. This is the side that I've already done and had to tape off all the chrome areas, and you can see it has quite a good thick coating of paint, and it turned out really well, considering that this was painted in the cold. It was probably about 40 degrees outside. You can see a little bit of orange peel, but it's only when you look up really close. On the whole, when you're actually looking at it, it's not a bad kind of finish. It is a truck bed, so it doesn't have to be perfect like with a car panel, but that's going to come up really good once that tape is removed. And even all the way up here, it does seem to cover really well, so I'm pretty happy with that. What I noticed is when I was painting it, because I did use a can, my biggest problem was as I gave it lots of light coats and I'd come back, and when you start to see it dry, it looked very patchy. It definitely is not patchy now, but I was able to come up with a way to do it to remove the patchiness. Because it was a colder day, usually if you're painting in a, where it's kind of warmer and there's more heat as you're painting, you don't have much time to kind of lay the paint down because the air's warm, the car's warm, and so it kind of dries reasonably quickly. But because the temperature was kind of cool, I was able to lay down some really thick coats. As you can see, there's like not one drip on this. I mean, it just laid down really good. I laid down some really kind of thick coats. So I would start here and just kind of like spraying like this, just clicking the nozzle, release, clicking the nozzle, release, click the nozzle, release. And as I did that, and this was wet, you look at it on an angle and you can see whether it looks really glossy and kind of thick, or if there's a little patch where it looks kind of dull. For the part that was dull, I just gave it a little kind of a extra paint on that one patch where it was dull. Then you stand back, you check if the dullness is gone and if it's looking heavy and glossy like the rest of it, and if it is, then you move on to the next section, which is right here. And so basically you're just creating a wet section here, another one, and so forth until you go all the way to the left there. Now by doing it that way, it just kept this really good glossy, kind of thick, very uniform look to the paint, and it was so much better than when I did the very thin coats. So kind of surprising, considering that you should only really paint in warmer temperatures, and we were working outside on a very cold day. So I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And this is the back area here, which I've done as well, and I use the same technique on that. This area here at the bottom, I've still got another couple of coats to do on that, and there's also a couple of drips. That was where I was experimenting, so I will lightly sand those dripped areas along there. It's not really a big deal. It's just the back of a bed. And then this here has all had just the one coat, so that's going to need a couple of more coats as well. But the back area here, that just has some primer on some areas, but that's going to be left to last, that back area there. So these are the things I'm using. So I've got my mask and gloves. This is the primer I'm using here, which seems to work really well. I used this to treat the rust, and it did a pretty good job actually. It's my first time using it. It was recommended by me, to me by someone, and it seems to work great. This is where the rust has been treated with it, right here. And I'm probably going to sand just a little dash more, but on the whole it did seem to really help kill that rust. Then what I do is, once I've dealt with the rust, sanded, and used the wire brush, let's have a look here if I've got that wire brush laying around. I don't know where I put it. I think it may be up here on the bed. Here we go. So I did use this little wire brush here and it worked great. I use this also to help get off some of the flakes, because some of those flakes it's hard to get off with just the brush. You have to kind of get up and underneath them and kind of scrape it away a little. Then I just used some of this 100 grit sandpaper, and that did the job. To get off all the dust and everything, I just used this. It's just a wax and grease remover, and that worked pretty well. So yeah, that's pretty much the project, and I'll show you once we're done here how it turns out. Thanks for watching.